computer.
Oh, right there. I didn't recognize her from the side of the table.
Everything was, she is here.
Not ready. No, they're waiting for people to show up. Right.
David's outside. Sarah is.
She had her phone. She was doing something. Perfect. Deal.
Yeah, probably.
I've got 1202.
Yep. I'll send it to her and have her updated. Mary Jo said she was calling in, right?
Yes.
Can we do a roll call for those that are on the phone?
Yeah, we will.
Phil? Go ahead. Phil?
Okay, so.
She'll call the names, won't she?
Who else is on the phone?
Dennis Powers is on.
Dennis. Bill.
Phil Parkak?
Yep.
Should we go around the table then?
Are you texting Mary Jo?
No.
Cheryl is here. She's just stepped out of the room for a moment. Rick Stout here.
Mary Seidner.
Martha Shoemaker.
Tom Gatoka.
Jennifer Datum.
Ian the Visor from the school system.
Holly McCallum from the school system.
Welcome in.
Nicole's also here from the finance department.
Okay.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order.
Mary Jo said she's calling in. She'll be here in a minute.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the December meeting.
I'll second the motion. Any discussions?
No?
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Okay. I think you're up.
Me?
Yeah, it says you're
Oh, I'm introducing Ian. Everybody, I'd like you to meet Ian the Visor. Hi, Ian.
How you doing?
And Holly.
Hello.
So, do you want me to talk
Yeah,
about what
we were
discussed?
curious at the previous meeting what the school system is doing with your American Rescue Plan funding.
In your experience and the experiences of the students and the families that have shared them with you.
Absolutely. So I can't speak to the regulations around your funding, but ours was quite unusual with the American Recovery Plan funds. For the first time in my entire career, we were able to use the funds in this grant to supplant our budget, not just supplement our budget. So essentially we could take things out of our budget that we may have budgeted for and use monies for that. That never happens with any grant that the state provides. So this was very unique. Our approach from the beginning was to use those funds for one-time expenditures. And our concern was if we didn't use them for one-time expenditures, we would essentially be creating a funding cliff, which I'm sure you guys have considered the same thing. So, we didn't go out and hire people, we didn't go out and add new positions, things like that, because those will continue to remain in the budget, and we didn't want to have those costs. So we spent our money on things that were, for example, playgrounds, upgrades. That was something that we originally had in our 5-year plan. Not necessarily next year, but we figured if we had the money now, might as well do it. We used some of that money for technology upgrades as well. That was actually some money that we had in the budget that allowed us to reduce the budget slightly. We used that money for, I got to pull up the list here. Outdoor classrooms, thank you. Which I'm sure you've read about. We have beautiful outdoor classrooms at 2 of the schools, and we're working on other ones. We used some money, and I guess I should clarify, we've gotten a number of grants from the state and federal government outside of the ARP monies. We got what's called the ESSER grants as well. We internally refer to the ARP grant as ESSER 3 because we had an ESSER 1, an ESSER 2, and now that's ESSER 3. So for example, for the SR2 money, paid for the bonded project study that we're doing right now, the pre-K through 8 facility study, the outdoor classrooms that we mentioned, the technology, playgrounds. We are required by the state to use a portion of our funding to address learning loss. So for us, that amounts to $130,000, just over $130,000 to address learning loss. And we've done a couple of different things. We are piloting a program called the Writing Revolution at our elementary schools. And, if you come to our budget meetings coming up, you'll hear more about what that entails. We did provide some additional supports for students after school. So we've temporarily hired some of our staff to work with students after school. But the majority of monies, like I said, were really used for those standalone projects, the playgrounds, the outdoor classrooms, and things like that. So that's where we stand now. We're fortunate. We're still getting some monies in, like we've gotten some additional funding through special education grants that we're looking at various ways to spend those that haven't been finalized yet. But again, we will be using those for one-time purchases versus creating that, that ongoing cost.
At the local level, what was the experience expressed by the community on the challenges with remote learning in general and accessibility of remote learning for the population of Ojai?
I would say there was a general agreement that it was not the most effective method of educating students. I can't say anybody disagrees with that. I think whether you ask the teachers, the students, the parents, you name it, they would all say the same thing.
I meant more from like a broadband or technology capability or accessibility.
We really didn't have a whole lot of issues with that. We surveyed our families and found that the majority of our families did have access to the internet. For the limited number that didn't, we were fortunate the state provided us with Wi-Fi hotspots. Kajit, it's called. So it does limit what you can do, but we do provide those to families who don't necessarily have access to the internet. We did provide computers in certain cases to families if they needed those. All of our students had devices to take home. Clearly our younger students, had different access than our high school students, but we were well prepared in that sense for the technology piece. That really wasn't an issue. The issue was more the aspect of actually doing the remote learning.
And also, did Maryside or OISB also help with printers?
Yes, she did. Absolutely. Yep. Toner. That was incredible help, especially when we first came back. Mary had given us quite a bit of toner, and I think also provided some printers as well. Did you know?
Right.
Yes, they can hear it.
How about, did you hear of any displacement from housing for any families? We're not asking for any specific, but did you hear of any displacement?
No, we actually saw the opposite take place. We saw a huge influx of students since the beginning of the pandemic, and we're continuing to see that. I'll be reporting tonight to the board that from last month we're up another 9 students. So I think we were around 1,200 something students. We're now at 1,330 students. So we're continuing to see growth in our student population.
People certainly away.
Oh yeah, of course. You're always going to have that, right? But I'm just at the end of the day, we're up 9. I'd have to go back.
That 9 is net.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Ian, hi, this is Mary Jo. I'm sorry I'm late, everybody. Thank you for your presentation. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of following on Rick's comment, have you any word, is there anybody struggling in the district possibly to lose their home or concerns at this point with this continuation of the pandemic?
We have not heard that from anyone. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't exist, but we have not heard that specifically from any families. I don't know if Mary, not to put you on the spot, but I know people might reach out to her as well.
Right, I don't, anything new, right? I think you would agree with me.
I think
right?
there's a handful that we're
handful.
aware of, but with the eviction moratorium still in place and the foreclosure is really slow these days, so even if somebody was struggling, that doesn't mean they're out of their house necessarily.
I can't say that it's any more than usual as that, like, but it's always a few.
Right,
that
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's hard to identify the reasons. You know, like maybe somebody works in the healthcare industry, but so that's limited them from getting income, or maybe they kind of unique, and so it's hard to pinpoint 100%. This is the reason, you know.
How about the
Thank
mental
you.
health of the student population in general?
That's definitely been a concern for us. You know, that's something we've really tried to focus on for the last couple of years. Obviously, this experience that our kids are going through now is unlike any experience that any of them have had, whether you're in high school or elementary school. And, you know, they've missed out on a lot of those traditional activities that we simply haven't been able to provide. Now, that being said, I think we've made a great effort to try to create as much a sense of normalcy as possible. You know, we've had band concerts outside, we've had proms in the parking lot, we've, you know, continued to try to make it as close to normal as possible, but there is definitely a strain on both the students and the staff. And I think people in general, you know, as this continues.
Is there any discussion about additional staff, like psychologists, therapists, even not obviously a full-time thing to come in
And
and
a
provide
portion of
support?
that for,
Yeah, so-
we are using,
With Learn, we're under contract with Learn
Right.
for some support.
That Project Learn?
yeah, yeah.
Not on this sheet, I don't know.
So we are using a portion of those monies to help support an additional part-time school to address some of those needs. Again, the idea, I know I said we weren't hiring people to add on, but the idea is that we hope that this is a problem that can, you know, within a couple of years can correct itself, so that won't be a long-term commitment for us. And our funding, again, I can't speak to yours, our funding goes through 2024?
Right, the ARP funds have to be spent by,
Right.
2024.
Right.
That's the same.
Same as yours?
Yeah.
Right.
And then addressing the mental health needs of the staff and teachers, are there ways to address that within the school system?
We've tried to do as much as we can to support our staff. You know, obviously, if there's a crisis situation where they need to get professional help, you know, we don't have the resources to address that. And fortunately, knock on wood, we have not been in that situation. But we've tried to do a lot of things that we haven't traditionally done to make sure that our staff feels supported and appreciated. You know, little things, for example, this mask that I'm wearing, we just distributed them to all of our staff, you know, for use, so hopefully they won't get ill. And, you know, obviously if they're not there, we can't have school. You know, we've been able to provide support for them on professional development days, give them some flexibility to work on their own materials. We've done some, you know, we've brought in pizza trucks, little things like that, you know, cannoli trucks, all sorts of different positive. Oh yeah, we had a wellness.
Not a raffle.
Right, not a raffle. A wellness giveaway because we can't do raffles. But at the end of last, we had we traditionally have an end of the year banquet that's off campus that you know everybody has to pay $20 to go to or something like that. This year we did it on campus, actually in the parking lot, and the district funded the entire thing. And we were able to get some monies through our insurance consortium to use for wellness. And Anthem this year allowed us to use those to provide. We gave away kayaks, we gave away blenders, we gave away gift certificates to gyms, all sorts of different stuff to all of our staff, and everybody walked away with something. So we've tried to help support their mental health by letting them know how much we're appreciative of them being there and continuing to work with the students.
And we also allowed that. If their students were remote, their children were remote.
Correct, and we're still doing that. If a teacher or any staff member really depending on their job, because not every job you can do remotely. But if you're able to do your job remotely and you have to be out, we are giving that allowance that if you can do your job, you can still do it. So we have a couple of teachers who are out, due to either themselves having COVID or a family member having COVID. Some have chosen to teach remotely. Others, some have young kids at home and just simply can't do it. So we have given that option.
But didn't we also allow them, if their child, that they could come into center?
Right, that's correct. So we also, there's been so many things going on, I'm starting to forget about them. Yes, that's correct, Martha. We actually ran our own daycare in center school. So we allowed all the teachers, because if you recall last year, we were one of the only school districts who was still in session. Many were remote. So a lot of the teachers' kids could not go to school. Right. So they had no one to leave them at home with, and these are young kids. So we decided, well, how can we help them, get to work? So we provided daycare every day, and many of them took advantage of it. And it was, we had it in center school, had it all year long, and it was incredibly appreciated, and allowed us to get all the teachers and all the staff back to work.
Yeah, it was all staff.
Ian, if I can, impacts on your infrastructure through with Ron, with the buildings and the schools as a result of this.
I missed the first part of that, Phil. What'd you say?
Impacts on your infrastructure, on the school and the facility itself.
Right.
With Ron and company.
Yep. So we did a couple of things in terms of infrastructure. First and foremost for us was upgrading or I shouldn't say upgrading our HVAC systems, because that's something we're looking to do for a long-term project, but really cleaning up and making sure that our HVAC systems were running at full efficiency and running in occupancy mode for additional time periods to essentially refresh the air within the buildings to make sure there was a constant airflow. We also moved, because we had to change our lunches, so instead of having all the students eat in the cafeteria, we split them up, and we've actually gone back to that since we returned from vacation. So for example, I'll use the middle school because that's probably the best example. Half the students eat in the cafeteria, half the students eat in the gymnasium. Well, that requires us to have 2 custodians on during the day versus 1 custodian. So we've shifted around some of our staff to address that. Initially, we had our custodial staff cleaning every door handle, every single desk, in between classes, anytime there was a change. That was a lot. After a while, we were told by DPH that was not necessary because, obviously the transmission is not through touching surfaces, it's through droplets. So we've definitely made some adjustments, and right now it seems to be working well. We did at one point, we were spraying down the buses too. We're not doing that anymore, again, for the same reasons. But we were doing all of that last year for pretty much the entire year.
And we did the water.
Have you considered, and this may not be a question really for you, but for your facilities guy, Ron, you've upgraded filtration from what I understand, and your systems are only 5 or 6 years old since the renovation. Is that correct?
Well, at the high school, the renovation was completed in 2013. So yes, at the high school, they're probably almost now 10 years old.
10 years old at this point.
But the other systems are 20 plus years old, depending on what building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that question answers itself, and that's something you guys are budgeting for. But did you consider putting air purification in the high school?
We looked into both HEPA filters and lighting. There's some. For example, hospitals will put UV lighting in their duct systems. But after discussing that with people at DPH, they didn't recommend either one for a variety of different reasons. Namely, the cost and the upkeep really were not offset by the potential to stop the spread of disease.
Right. Okay, and you're already all right. And I'll probably thank you very much. I can have this discussion with Ron a little later, but thanks. That answers my question.
Okay. And as everybody knows, we are looking to, not necessarily because of COVID, but it certainly does help support that idea. Through our pre-K through 8 facility study, we are looking to upgrade the HVAC system at all the buildings, obviously, except for the high school, along with code updates, things like that.
Are you, have you spent it all?
Have we spent all our money?
Yeah, do you get it in 2 parts like we do, or you got it all at once?
So typically with grants for us from the state, we draw it down as it's spent. So we haven't officially spent everything, but it's all been allocated because we have to put in specific budgetary requests for it. So some of the technology as the platforms transition from what we wanted to something different, like we haven't spent those funds yet, but we will be soon as we settle on exactly what route we want to go. And a couple of the outdoor classroom pieces will happen after the winter settles, well, I don't know if you call this winter, but after this particular season decides what it's going to do. And then, but for the majority of the art funding has been spent, yes.
Which again, this is Mary Jo, which brings up a concern of the towns, and that is, what is your accounting practices that you're doing in the schools? Are you using a special system? Do you have folks that you're working with to respond to the state? That sort of thing.
So the state of Connecticut for school systems, and I have no idea how it works for towns, but we have a program that we work directly to the state with. It's called eGrants, and it's a newer system for schools, but I'll try to give a big picture look at it. They basically say, here's your money, and these are the rules around it, and then we have to go in and put in what we want to use the money for in regards to allocating it specifically under, the requirements of the monies. Ian has to approve it, then it goes to the state for multiple levels of approval. If they have questions or are dissatisfied with something, they'll kick it back to us for revision. That we're past all of that point in time. When it comes to accounting for it on our end, we treat it like our other expenditures in that we create, separate accounts for that specific money. And for those who are within the district who are responsible for the expenditure, for example, a playground, that would be under the facilities department. They would have access to spend against that account number. And we would then, based upon what the expenditures are, draw the monies down from the state. And we usually get the monies within a month or two, usually not that long. So we're treating it, we account for it like we do basically any expenditures. It's just above and beyond outside our general operating budget.
Thank you.
Have you had any thoughts about technology for the community to join meetings?
You mean providing it to the community?
Yeah, like, Zoom, or like how does the general public watch a Board of Ed meeting when they're remotely?
Yep, we have changed that. So we have a YouTube channel where all of our meetings are live streamed. And, depending on the content of the meeting, we'll have sometimes small numbers, sometimes larger numbers on those meetings. We also have the ability for the public to make public comment, because on the YouTube channel you can't interact, it's just simply watching the meeting. But at all of our meetings through our public comment there is a Zoom link, so someone could actually Zoom into the meeting and make public comment. And a number of people have taken advantage of that. We're actually using that tonight because a couple of board members can't attend, so they're going to be Zooming in via that. We do that for all of our board meetings. We do have Zoom access to our committee meetings. Like, for example, this afternoon we're having our Facilities and Finance Committee, and that will have Zoom access. But we haven't provided laptops to people to do that.
No, I just meant the ability for the public to join a meeting.
Yep, and those are all recorded too. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jen.
That's something we're talking about here in terms of, I know you've upgraded cameras, microphones, to make it easier for people to hear what's happening. I watch the Board of Ed meetings, sometimes live, and it's hard to see who's who, even with your name tags, so there's always ways to get better and ways for us to get better in the town in terms of hybrid meetings like this with the phone? Do we have a screen? Do we have speakers, microphones, all that stuff we're looking at?
There are cameras that you can put in the middle of the table.
Right.
I'm sure you know that.
360.
Right, and as soon as you start talking, it's going to zoom in on your face.
Oh no, it's like the Hunger Games.
Yeah, we didn't get those. Actually, it was Mary was the one that told me because we first started live streaming the meetings, and Mary said, "Oh, I watched the meeting last night, but I couldn't hear anything you guys were saying." So we had the microphones, we just weren't using them because we didn't think about that. So now we have everyone, when they speak into the microphone. So tonight, for example, Holly's doing a presentation. She'll need to use the cordless microphone for that.
Oh. And sometimes it goes beyond tech, it goes to staff as well.
Right.
To do all that.
Yeah.
It's a human element.
Yeah, I'd like to go offline later on that in regards to the technology levels that you're talking about. Because I know right now I'm serving with doing some research on enhancing everything here for hybrid meetings. So it'd be interesting to being able to talk to someone with a little more technical savvy.
Yeah, absolutely, not a problem, Dave.
Okay.
I think it's also wise to look at what other local towns are doing too, because they've done a ton of research and have tell you the best packages and what's worked best for them.
Question, you're kind of a micro-population of the town with both your students and families and your staff. And I'm wondering, just anecdotally, and I don't know, Holly, if you live in a different town.
I do.
Ian, you're outside of town.
Right.
Whether what you see in your own hometowns or what you're sensing from the families, is there anything you think we should be thinking about?
Avoid. Yeah, no, exactly. Is there a void that is like right there?
Boy, I would say if we heard of a good idea in another town, we would have borrowed it already.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I do meet, and I know Holly meets with business managers all over the state. I meet with superintendents all over the state, and we do try to share ideas. And sometimes someone will say something that maybe you hadn't thought of, or maybe it's doing differently. Other times they'll say stuff and you go, why the heck are you doing that? Nothing jumps out at me right now that we aren't doing that someone else is
well,
doing.
actually,
or
we as a town, as opposed to...
Wait, not that I can think of. Again, no offense, but I don't watch the selectmen meetings on YouTube. I have enough meetings of my own. But I know, we've been meeting. I'll meet with Martha and Tim and and Matt, and Dave Kelsey and the people online as well. In fact, we have a meeting Friday. We'll do that via Zoom.
But as far as ARPA funding for the town,
I mean, in your towns, have you heard anything creative that they're doing with their ARPA funds? New London, your town.
We're building a community center in New London for some of it, which they needed probably 50 years ago, thankfully.
They got a ton more money than we did, too.
Yeah.
Well, still relative, right?
Yeah, right. You can argue perhaps some
a lot of nonprofits to support the town.
Yep.
I don't know what Essex is doing. I'm too busy being a senator, so I don't know.
I know New London is also putting money towards, what the heck was it? It was kind of a controversial thought process on, I think it was Wellness was one of the things that they were putting money towards, which is
after-school programming,
sailing.
Right. Science and sailing.
Yeah. But there hasn't really been a lot of communication out as far as the bigger piece of it, but the way in which that's been handled is a totally separate conversation from this one.
Yeah.
So it's not been a lot of community involvement in that. And maybe that would be something, is more community involvement to see how to spend the monies.
Are there limitations? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but are there limitations on your use of the funds?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Phil's shown up behind you.
Phil is.
You
You can sit at the table, Phil.
There, you got the technology.
there's reporting requirements that are pretty significant.
And auditing, I mean, the monies will get audited as well.
But it's like mental health,
Public health, infrastructure. Forgot the other three.
There's a lot of categories, but they're pretty open.
What's on our survey?
And that was the reason I brought that question up, and knowing that you're going to be retrofitting some of those other systems. When you do that, given the knowledge from this experience, the last 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Can sort of guide how that's handled going forward. We're fortunate in some cases do some retrofitting and some other things to our existing systems, but as we replace these systems in this building, particularly the senior center we did a couple of years ago, we've been able to make some of those modifications they're relatively low-hanging fruit, because I did change the filtration system at the senior center and some of the filtration systems here because they had access because of the width and the size of the filters. But you were right, there are a lot of trick wires in that if you find a filter, you actually can impact the operation of the system to a detrimental level. So when we did it, I make them take this, what they call the static pressure on the equipment. Whenever they do it, they do it again in 90 days. And then we read the impact that it's having on the system, and we go through that tolerance, and then stop at that point.
And you're not using UV lighting, right?
We are not using UV lighting at this point at all. There's a maintenance requirement that goes with it.
Right.
And two, depending upon the volume of the TFM that's going through the ductwork on the other side of the coil, you can have issues. In smaller systems, it may work very well.
Right.
All right.
We could do things like small business or business assistance and helping tourism, hospitality, families.
One of the things that we're looking at as a board is sustainability. Trying to, we put solar on all of our buildings except for Mile Creek, solely because Mile Creek the roof can't support the solar panels. We're looking at using some of our grant monies, not from this grant, but from a different grant, to purchase electric vehicles, to add to our transportation vehicles. And one of the things we had talked about, and you asked what we did in other towns. I know my town in Essex put in a charging station. It happens to be right in downtown, but we're actually looking at putting in a charging station possibly over by the high school. For two purposes. One, if we buy electric vehicles, but also for people to use if they needed to, charge.
For the other areas that we don't talk about so much are premium pay and revenue loss for first responders and work performed. And revenue loss not so much relevant to us.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. If we come up with any bright ideas, we'll let you know.
We're going to need the umbrella opened up.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye.
All right. Dave, just give me a call whenever you get a chance.
So you can come.
Move forward.
What's that?
So I had sent out to everybody via email, this is Rick speaking, and I do have a copy if anybody needs any. I'm going to do needs assessment needs assessment committee update. As a reminder, we have until Friday, January 7th to still collect responses. I would like to once again just single out the tremendous job that Cheryl has done on this whole effort. It's been remarkable. Thank you very much.
Here.
Yes, absolutely. There was an article in Limeline yesterday, and actually Mary also sent out an email, which I received, promoting the survey, and they were still coming in this morning. But we're nearing depending on whose number you look at, population, we're nearing a 10% response rate, which I think is quite good. I had a figure, just a mental figure that popped in my head before we started this, that if we got over 500, I thought that would be a decent sample population. So if we get close to 10% or 10%, I think that's great. Some of the details, 478 are primary residents that are not business owners. 55 of them are primary residents and business owners. So I would fall into that category. And I found answering that not problematic at all. 159 of the respondees were property owners with primary residence elsewhere. So that would be people, summer families or rentals. Mm-hmm.
Or I should say snowbirds.
Snowbirds are
primary residences in Florida.
23 business owners with primary residence elsewhere. I was really happy that we had that many respondees of business owners that lived outside. I thought that was great. Interesting that 19 tried to take the survey but got kicked out, so that's kind of a testament to the checks and balance system.
Was that because they were from Lyme or another town, or?
They were not residents, owners, or business leaders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for us.
With the organization and businesses, 40 business respondees. I thought that was tremendous. 2 were general managers or larger businesses, which I'm glad to see that. I think we could, probably imagine who that might be, or we will find out who that might be. I guess we could. And even more surprising to me is the number. I didn't realize there were 30 nonprofit or town organization leaders out there to respond. I thought that was great. One of the things that Cheryl noted is that there are 100, of the ones we've collected, there are 169 comments so far. Of those 169 comments, 69 of them are pro-sewer or clean water comments. Probably not surprising given that that they've reached out to us already. Mm-hmm. We have a recommendation. The committee would like to make a recommendation that we hold a meeting next week. We don't have one scheduled. However, with the close of the survey, I think it's important on us to jump on this. I was originally going to propose the same time, same place. However, I have a conflict. I can't do 12. I could do 1. I would very much like to be participating in this meeting, and if we need to do it a different time to accommodate everybody, I will bend over backwards.
I can do 1 o'clock next Wednesday.
I can do 1.
Yep.
I can do 1 by phone.
Okay.
Out of the country.
So, parliamentarian, do I have to make a motion to schedule a meeting since it's not scheduled?
Special meeting.
So I'd like to make a motion that we schedule a special meeting for next Wednesday, January 12th at 1 o'clock to be held. I'm sorry?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Did you say, Rick, that you're going to have the results for us to look at in advance?
I didn't say that.
Are you going to have the results?
So
this is the discussion part.
Okay. So it's not as easy as yes or no because, frankly, we don't know what the analytics are going to entirely look like until we have the analytics. Would you continue to say that that's accurate?
I would say, yes. The intention is to email them out before the meeting.
Okay.
I know I have to sanitize a couple of comments that were from individual people. But that's the intention. We just don't know until we push the analyze the results button what the PDF is going to look like, how messy it is, and how much cleanup needs to be done.
And if you want to hook up to that screen, we can even look at some of it in real time.
Yeah.
Would the focus of this meeting just be the survey? Because we'll have another meeting a week later.
That's what that's what I'm recommending, or that's what the committee is recommending.
I think that's a good call.
It's going to be a lot.
A good call only because if we could look at the data and kind of grind...
And the comments.
And the comments and kind of...
Subset.
Just kind of grind through that. Yes, there'll be a meeting the following week, but hopefully we can construct a response.
I say it's subset. I'm assuming it's going to be... entirely different. We're going to be able to parse additional information from the
Right.
comments, is what I meant by that.
Yeah, we should be able to structure it.
And I've not seen one survey other than my own, so I'm not privy to any information than that.
I had a few people ask me about the survey, and we did actually at the Lions Christmas party,
Mhm.
I told folks to take it, and I happened to fill in one day at All-Pro down the street because they were understaffed, and I was off, and I was
Promoting it.
telling everybody that came, Jeff has like 15 people waiting in
Yeah.
the waiting room.
Good,
You know,
good.
what the heck?
Yeah.
Why not? So I think I'm thrilled to see the response rate.
Speaking too of keeping the community informed, at some point down the line, we can let them know the results of the survey in a broad.
I think
We have to.
I think we published.
Absolutely have to. Absolutely have to.
Yep.
That's the committee's absolute clear intent.
And I think we publish them, depending upon how they get scrubbed, with a thank you to the community for reaching out and helping these folks
Yeah.
Yeah, like
do what they need to do, I
the
think.
example you gave us, Cheryl, was at East Windsor. The East Windsor site that had the small business grants of $10,000.
Yes.
You could go on and look at everything, every application, every comment, every evaluation of the application. I thought it was very
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're
Informative.
saying, yeah. And you
Yeah.
in East Windsor you could, okay.
Yeah, I mean, they-
I liked kind of what they did.
They had a lot of information that was just on the website.
Is that the one that used that alternate
Yes.
administrative person?
Yes, they figured it out.
Yeah, okay. One thing that Cheryl had shared with me, and I think she intended for me to share the sentiment of that one comment.
Sure.
All right, so one comment that I did read was from a small business owner in town who has children, and it was quite heartfelt, indicating just how difficult it had been as a small business owner. This business owner, was forced to shut down, and having the children and the struggles that the children have had with remote learning, economic struggles, and it was, you could feel the human element come through in this response, and
also, if I can interrupt,
Yeah, please.
witnessing her customers' mental health
yes,
struggles.
just another touch point on how many people are experiencing the mental health issue, which is not an easy, in good times, it's not an easy, frankly, it's
And I'm glad you guys sort of touched on that when Ian was here with the school, what were the impacts, and he talked about.
their report was more favorable than that, than
Yeah.
expected, to be perfectly frank.
Hey, this is Mary Jo. Are we still in discussion on the motion?
We're still in discussion. We haven't brought it to a motion yet. I mean, we haven't brought it to a vote yet.
Vote. We're still talking about.
What I'm wondering is, okay, we were kind of backtracking on the mental health piece. Is there anything else that we need to discuss before we approve the motion?
the meeting.
Have a new meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we call a vote?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great.
So, Jen, are you gonna,
With that, our report is done.
okay.
And Rick, do you know?
Thank you so
Is this-
much, committee.
I'll double check that.
Thank you.
I think it is because we had originally had the meeting on the 12th before we went off a week.
Oh, that's right.
So I'll double check with Michelle that nothing else has come up.
Thank you.
I'm gonna look right now. It looks available.
Okay.
The next topic I had asked to have added to the agenda, and I'm guessing Dave has some input he wants to share on that, but I just want to share why I felt it was important to include on the agenda this discussion of urgent and immediate community needs. And that is because, as you know, we've gone through the last few weeks, I think everyone can recognize the fact that things have gotten more difficult for a number of people, whether it's missing work or dealing with isolation again, as seniors are more and more concerned about going out. I think the sense I get is that it's a more anxious time once again. And so I just wanted to be sure we think about, are there things we can be doing now or should be considering now, in addition to what I believe Dave wants to talk about, that are more urgent than perhaps later spring. I don't know if the senior center is close.
No, the senior center, I just read an email from them. They are saying no close contact in person. So they're not going to have card games, but if they have a movie or a lecture where they can social distance, they're going to continue. So that's their status.
This is Joe, and Cheryl, thank you for bringing up this question. I gave that a lot of thought this week, and I would like to recommend that the committee consider having Steve Mansfield from Ledgelight attend an upcoming meeting, obviously not next week or maybe even the following week, but maybe in February, to come and tell us, as we all discussed, they've asked for a 10% of our allocation, but also to tell us what other towns need, what other towns are doing. Is there any possibility of working collectively within our health district to address immediate and potentially long-term needs?
I agree. I can reach out to Steve and have him see if he's available for our next scheduled meeting.
No, I have a regular meeting with, telephone meeting with Steve as part of the board, and I'll just follow up if we all agree it can go on until February.
Yep.
19th.
It'll be the 19th?
January?
February.
January 19th or February 2nd. Those are our upcoming meetings
19th.
after next week.
Could we also ask a group of people, and I'm just going to suggest Jen, Mary, Stephanie from Senior Center, maybe visiting there, I don't know who else, to put your heads together and think about community needs. Like, I just don't have a sense of it. I don't have a sense.
Well, you got to break it down between the businesses, because I think the businesses were more affected in the beginning, right? And now they're more up and running, whereas it might be individuals still dealing with things. And we haven't had a huge recent request that I'm aware of from folks looking for help. There's definitely families that we are helping. A lot of the questions I got over the past week were about the test kits.
Well, which is indicative of being able to for this collective with the funds that we have, of the need to be able to be in a position where we can pivot and respond. They don't want to wait till this thing's done. If we have the ability to do something, or capture a resource, as a committee should be in a position to do that at some level. And that speaks to a discussion I had before earlier about some towns, what they did. If you look at their program, they took a piece of their funding and put it aside for, in addition to local businesses and local nonprofits, they put a piece of it aside. We are going to use it to respond to needs, and to use this particular case, masks when they were ordered and not delivered. So I didn't know if that's something that this committee wanted to certainly consider in that fashion or another fashion, but I thought it was worth bringing to the surface as a committee and trying to decide where we want to go with that.
What people were asking me, not just when are the kits available, what can I get, but they were homebound, literally homebound, so they couldn't get out of their house, or they live with an immunocompromised person, or they don't want to expose themselves to other people while getting the kit, and the drive-through relieved some of that.
Some of the recommendations that we're getting from CDC and getting from CDH or DDH is basically the target audience for these kits are not seniors who are self-isolating. It's not seniors who are expanding out of their small cohorts. They are targeted towards everybody who's still floating around in town making the wrong decisions and being in the wrong places, that has helped to recognize it.
Right.
And there's limited kits. And that's why I always tell people, this is the population of Old Lyme, this is how many kits we got.
Yeah.
So we have to triage it. But those folks want the kits too.
So I'm sorry, so I'm not sure what we're really discussing right now. I mean, are we gonna hear something of a recommendation that we need to move
If
on
we move
now?
on to urgent and immediate needs, yeah, I have something to present.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this in conclusion. In addition to what you're going to be sharing with us, Dave, I want us to keep an eye on this isolation issue. I think people are tired and going back into isolation, especially for these seniors who are living alone. I don't know what the answer is, but I want us to be open to creative ideas to address this.
During the beginning of the pandemic, before vaccines, the Senior Center mobilized a list of volunteers who called people who were isolated once a week, and they were assigned to each other, and they did their weekly check-in, and they became almost like pen pals, but they would call each other. And I don't know if that's still going on, but maybe we can talk to Stephanie about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
I'm up? Okay. As you all know, the state of Connecticut is not the most stellar delivery service in the world. The home test kits were brought out publicly on December 27th, advising the communities that these large quantities were supposed to be available December 20th. Giving the municipalities the responsibility to react very quickly during a limited period of time between Christmas and New Year's with limited staff. That announcement fell short on the 29th when they announced to the municipalities that they don't have the materials in stock. And they were rapidly trying to regather supplies from other distributors to get them to us. On the 30th, I received a phone call and a notification from the state that a limited number of test kits were inbound to the state of Connecticut, and on the 31st, New Year's Eve, that afternoon, they notified us that the kits were in the warehouse in New Britain, state's warehouse in New Britain, and municipalities had three choices. They could either A, come up and get them that evening, B, wait 48 hours for them to be delivered, or C, wait until the point of distribution for each of the regional areas are established, ours being Mohegan Sun, the first week of January. Because of the lack of my feelings with the state, we sent a public works employee up New Year's Eve night to drive to New Britain to pick up the cases or the kits that were issued to the town. Those kits were 12 cases at 540, I think it was. We received around 500 kits. And those kits were divided up under the state's guidance, a recommendation of essential frontline workers, municipal frontline workers, first responders, and individuals to the general public.
The schools.
Oh yes, the schools, and also to individuals who were at a high rate of risk, exhibiting symptoms or experiencing symptoms, or have been in extended close contact with a COVID positive person.
So the schools didn't get a separate delivery? Wait for it.
Wait for it. So Saturday morning, the first day of the year, I met with Ian and we sat in the Public Works garage for a couple of hours playing musical boxes and numbers, trying to figure out the best equitable way to get some to everybody. Those decisions were made to have 180 kits be available for the general public, meeting the criteria of or under the advisement and criteria of the state. 135 went to the school system, and the small remainder got divided up among municipal employees and fire and EMS and other ancillary agencies that are first responders, such as Valley Shore, Emergency Communications, and a few others. Sunday, that was Saturday. Saturday afternoon, we created press releases and pushed it out to the public that we were going to do a drive-through of only 180 kids to the criteria was recommended by the state, Sunday afternoon from 3 to 5. With a great bunch of volunteers who don't know how to say no.
That'll teach you.
We were able to establish and maintain a drive-through from 3 o'clock in the afternoon on until all the kids were gone.
Which is before 5, I'm going to guess.
Yes. Hour and a half, 4:30 we gave out our
Oh, that's not bad.
We had 90 cars pre-staged awaiting us to open. We were able to give out the kits. We satisfactorily got some out in the public. And tomorrow I'm supposed to receive another 500 kits. Our goal is to reestablish the drive-through this Saturday from probably in the morning, I'm thinking maybe 9 to 12 or 9 to 11 or 10 to 12 after staff together to give out an additional 500.
Still be at the middle school.
Still be at the middle school because the facility itself acts very well, absorbs a large amount of cars without any threats of people being up on the roadways or Lime Street.
And also you can split them right off. Yep.
And if it overexpands, that campus layout is great enough where you could enter Center School, burble your way around the back of Center School's parking lot, in front of Mile Creek, or in front of Middle School, down by the tennis courts, over around the high school, come up to the tennis court, and actually have a test kit distribution at that point, which would handle over 3,000 cars. So I like the facility, the size of it over there. So that's all the backstory of how we got to here today. Based upon the state of Connecticut being our sole supplier, Monday morning I started doing research and finding other avenues or other means of logistic support where kits might and where be available. The state of Connecticut is going to continue placing orders and having them available, I assume, again, a mistake, but I can presume that they're going to continue on somewhat of a maintained schedule week by week or every other week, depending upon what their inventories are. I do have the abilities to join in with other agencies in the state. Southport Fire Department has established a private account or business account with one of the suppliers directly, where we can jump on, place an order under their name, have it shipped to us, and then be able to improve our commodities. I do not know what the next order quantity is going to get from the state, but looking at this, I think that this use of ARPA money would be very advantageous to procure additional kits and support and pay for the labor associated with the distribution of kits right across the board, and not having to deal with municipal funds or certain line items that either getting ready to exceed or in the process of being gobbled up.
So what's the target number of kits that we need?
Yeah.
Let me continue. The other approach that I've taken is I've reached out to the State of Connecticut Department of Public Health, and I have a meeting with them Thursday on the possibility and probability of bringing PCR testing labs to the town of Oline on a multiple day schedule, maybe twice a month, maybe once a week. All of these questions are still up in the air.
We talked, Dave, earlier after the whole fiasco with the state and getting all of this stuff distributed about when I sent out a memo. I tried to send it out over the weekend. It wouldn't go out. And then it finally went out on Monday morning because I did it from my desk here. That wanted to look at, and I wanted to talk to Dave after I sent it out, to juxtaposition either ARPA money or some funding source to be able to, and the way I looked at it from my experience in the Department of Transportation is to sort of bid the holes, meaning that the state is buying 6 million masks, 6 million test kits, whatever, and it's having difficulty getting them and can't meet schedules and so on and so forth. Maybe there's a better mousetrap in bid the holes. We're a small town.
Or an alternate.
Right, we're a small town. You know, you bid for 500 masks, and you find a source and you get them, but you have to be in a position to pay for them and have them delivered and all of that. So that was really the thrust of the piece that I sent. And Omicron is different from Delta and different from the original virus in my way of thinking. And I think about everybody's going to wind up having to deal with it at some level. It is extraordinarily contagious, but it appears to be less virulent. So, but it is doing things that Delta and the original one did not. It is affecting young people. It's affecting everybody simply by the fact that it's so contagious. So we're dealing with a little bit of it, the same virus, a little bit of a different animal. And I think it's
in the 21% infection rate right now.
Right. And we're, so you have the numbers, and those are the people that actually went and got tested, you know. So I think that it's incumbent upon us as the stewards of that money and hopefully that ability to position ourselves to be able to do that. And I think that will require an allocation of funding to support that of this money soon.
This is Mary Jo.
I'll put a period at the end of that. Yes, Mary Jo.
Oh, thank you. I don't disagree with anything you just said, and I appreciate Dave, looking into it. I think that was also my thought, if I wasn't clear before, of involving our health district. Mm-hmm. I mean, I got to believe that buying in bulk with group agencies, similar to like the fire department scenario Dave mentioned, would be more cost effective, and obviously you'd have more bandwidth to bid if you went out with that in mind. So I really think we need to involve our health district also. I also think if we're going to take the tack that the schools shared with us, that everything was managed per their usual purchasing situation at school, we need to have that situation kind of discussed too, so that Nicole, that still goes through our finance department, knows what we're bidding for, how much we're bidding for, and we have some costs or not to exceed in place before we just bid.
Well, there's no real bidding. The cost per kit direct from one supplier or one manufacturer, a company called iHealth, which is an FDA-approved testing facility, or testing
manufacturer,
which the state of Connecticut just received a 500,000 order from, I believe, yesterday. Our cost is about $14 per box, which contains 2 kits. So that's like $6 to $7 per test in the container. They offer it packaged in 90 kit cases at $1,200 to $1,300 per case shipped.
I'm sorry, what was that number again, Dick?
90 kits
90 kits?
at about $1,300 a case.
Which is 180 tests.
No, it's 90 tests.
90
90 kits.
So it's 45 boxes,
No,
So what's the
90
per kit cost?
kits.
90 kits.
which is 180
Which
cat
is
tests.
100.
But you can't split them up.
If
No, no, I know that, I'm just saying,
But you're getting
you're
Getting 90 kits.
You give a box
with 2 tests in it.
with 2 tests in it,
for $14 a piece roughly.
$14 a piece.
Retail.
$14 a box.
I paid $23.99 at CVS.
A box.
For eye health?
That's
No, it
not
was different.
retail.
No, it was iHealth, yeah.
That's like, that's cheaper than retail, if you can find it.
Yeah, that is cheaper than retail.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
No. And also,
To work out too.
I reached out to iHealth to establish a business or municipal account with them, and I have not heard back from them. The only way to contact them is through email, but I assume that they're overwhelmed with every other way we're jumping on it too. I do also have a opportunity to utilize, to place an order under Southport Fire's account and have them shipped directly to us. And I am reaching out with Sam Gold at RiverCog. Ben Fleischarm, the mayor in Middletown, is looking to put together a group buy also. If you saw on the news, East Hartford, City of East Hartford had kits going out before anybody else. They pre-bought those on their
In
own.
New Haven as well.
At New Haven. So I've got 4 irons in the fire working in 4 different directions.
Is Ledgelight looking to
No.
group purchase?
No.
How many kits are needed?
We have 7,500 and change in town.
7,000 residents.
To do 5,000 kits, a bulk order of that magnitude would be $70,000.
That's a lot.
In addition to whatever we've continued to receive
From the state.
from the state. My thought on this is to place a proposal in one of 4 I have today, to place a proposal on the table for the ARPA committee to make a positive recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. Now, based on that, we fall into the Board of Selectmen's schedule of events. Anything over $20,000 has to go to a town meeting. The town meeting, they currently have a town meeting scheduled for the 24th of January, which, if the ARPA committee makes a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to earmark or utilize $16,000 for testing and labor, which is purely provided by, under the Treasury rule, page 10 of that giant document I gave you all, identifies that responding to a public health emergency or its negative economic impacts. Pathway 1 is public health emergency. Eligible uses include COVID-19 mitigation and prevention, including vaccination, testing, contact tracing, and public health expenses, including communications, enforcement, isolation, and quarantine. It also includes and is approved for use for public health and safety staff to include payroll and required benefits for public safety, public health, healthcare, human services, and similar employees to the extent that their services are devoted to mitigating or responding to a COVID-19 public health emergency. So we have the emergency, we have the need to support and improve the capability of individuals to self-test, and this would allow us to utilize those funds appropriately under the Treasury guidelines. So I put a motion out on the table, and this is one of a couple more I've got, is to appropriate or recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they earmark or place, Nicole, correct me on the proper wording on this, $50,000 of ARPA money to be utilized for responding to a public health emergency by mitigation and prevention of testing and the associated labor expenses associated with it.
How much for kits and how much for labor?
Don't know. I'm not looking to spend it all at one box. See,
Right, that's where I was kind of headed in the discussion.
I'm looking to, my recommendation in further detail to the Board of Selectmen for spending of this money, this $50,000, would be incremental as needed to procure and dispense kits and masks, along with any associated costs that may incur down the road for on-site PCR testing to keep an accurate mitigation effort going of testing for the potential of COVID-19.
So Dave made a motion, we need a second before we can have further discussion, right? Did you make a motion?
No.
No, I'm still presenting.
Okay.
Oh, that wasn't a motion.
We
need to have a motion, and I'd like to ask a question before you make your motion.
Me
with
too.
Our bidding, with our bidding process, Nicole, can we appropriate a sum greater than $20,000, and then you could have multiple vendors and multiple labor sources and multiple folks, and do like the school system does, where they do a drawdown of just the piece for that. In other words, if we buy masks and we buy $19,000 worth of masks, that's under the $20,000 threshold. So that would be a purchase that the appropriate party could make from that funding that's set up. Versus in my world, if the project is over $20,000, now I have to go through that whole other process. Is that legit, or?
No. I would just have the Board of Selectmen approve waiving bidding requirements in relation to the mask.
Okay.
And it would also say you're going to have to show Board of Selectmen wants to approve any furnaces. So this committee, this is my understanding, I think correct me if I'm wrong, that this committee is going to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they spend, I would say up to $100,000. Because you're going to, let's say you want to go buy 5,000 things and all of a sudden that cost is skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Or you have to pay people to deliver and you really don't know.
Okay.
So that's what I would say.
All right.
If it all goes to the town meeting, then we're going to go.
All right. So looking at that, I'm going to place a proposal. Anybody have any other questions?
I do.
General discussion?
Yes. Go ahead.
The town meeting, January 24th, that's 3 weeks away.
Yes.
And we have 2 meetings between now and then. So wouldn't our proposal be refined for the agenda item for the annual meeting do we have to determine that today when we have 2 more meetings between now and the annual meeting?
I do have COVID-19 funding currently in the current budget.
You mean non-ARPA funding, your budget?
Just COVID-19 budget line.
Okay.
So you're talking about under your emergency management
Yes.
department? Okay, well, 40,000 of that is just for rangers. So you've only got 35,000, and I'm not sure what.
Yeah.
I can't say if that's all available.
Yeah. I believe I have enough funding in there to do preliminary small purchases to help offset or to improve the quality or the quantity of kits I'm getting from the state. Each case is 90 test kits. Each case on an online order is about $1,300. That would improve my weekly distribution. If I had those in hand now, I could give out 600 tests
Right, be more efficient, you make the
Be a little
process
more
much more
efficient,
efficient. I understand.
until this gets moved or approved.
I would still have the board on it because the policy works, as Phil said, you could get like little
Yeah.
tiny purchases, but the time we get to 20, it all kicks in again.
Right.
So it's really circumventing doing it that way, as long as it's not a big deal to have.
Yeah.
And they can do that either at a Board of Selectmen meeting or Board of Selectmen meeting. Okay.
So,
Hi, this is Mary Jo. I can't hear a word from Nicole on the phone. I apologize. I guess I would just like to say, if this committee is going to make a motion to approve monies be considered for test kits to remediate the situation with COVID, that we make it very, very specific. If it's test kits, then we indicate how much we allocate towards that. If it's masks, we indicate how much we're going to approve for that. I just think it would serve us well down the line when we have to report all this, that we make our request very specific. But I'm going to defer to Nicole since I can't hear anything. Thanks.
So she's moving up, Mary Jo. She's moving up so you can hear her.
Dave, I almost hesitate to ask this, but were we supposed to get some masks from the feds? I know.
and I'm holding my hands up looking at Guy.
I know.
They're supposed to come.
So are we buying masks for the people in town?
Not masks, kits.
I'm sorry, test kits. I'm so sorry. Are we buying test kits for the people in town because they can't get them themselves because they're sold out, or because of the cost, or both?
There's both. There's both.
Or the availability.
Right, availability or cost.
Because of the spike that occurred during the holidays, and this being above 21%, there's a high probability of virus spread among individuals.
Of course.
For an individual who is asymptomatic and has to prove or wants to find out if they've contracted it at an early stage, the only testing ability before the home test kits was a PCR test. And PCR testing centers are overwhelmed with individuals trying to make appointments. The implementation of the home test kit acts as a first speed bump. If you test with a home test, if you test with a home...
all of that. That's not even in question. It's just, I'm thinking, what is our purpose? Like, because I went and bought 2 kits yesterday with my own money, because I had, they were some.
Well,
oh my God, there's some test kits. I'm buying them.
but
not everyone can do that.
But there's probably test kits now, because these folks went out over the weekend and handed out.
I don't know. They're impossible to find everywhere. It's impossible.
No, but I'm just saying, she found some yesterday. What I'm saying is, probably you guys dumped 180 in this population, which probably slowed the number of folks coming into CVS for 3 hours. So there were 2 kits when you walked in. I mean, I know that they're very difficult to get, and quite frankly, the entire country has done a lousy job of getting these tests out. Europe and Japan have this sorted out. They're everywhere.
Well, has there been a motion made?
No, not yet. We're still discussing. So that.
One other question.
So that's where we are. You know, I mean, we're seeing this 21%. We're seeing a tsunami, and we're talking about, are the gutters clean in our house?
Yeah.
You know, better prepare for the tsunami.
So my question is, you also mentioned PCR testing. This isn't an either-or, buying tests or PCR testing. That's a whole
At this point, I have no financial data on what it's going to cost for me to get PCR testing down here.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm sitting here scribbling.
I to follow up on what I said too, it's there's people who can't go from drugstore to drugstore, they can't take time off of work. And
Well,
they
or
don't
they're
have the money
isolating.
to buy multiple, or they're isolating, exactly. So you have to get your neighbor or something. But other people, like myself, I was in the CVS and they had, so, you know, that's kind of what leads me to the question, is it availability or money? Or
Right, and we have I think at this point, the anticipation is that the tests are coming from the state to be distributed by the towns.
Yeah.
So we are facilitating that piece of business. And if we have folks who are isolated, we have some due diligent responsibility to get them to those folks who can't get them. But the first thing we have to do is get them. You know, that's where we are with.
So, this scenario, what is our end then? What are we thinking that you might need? And I applaud your concern for the equity piece of people that can't get them, and I'd also say it's important to keep enough for our first responders too. What is our end? Is it 900 cases? Is it 90 cases? What are we thinking?
I think that number floats depending upon what the state does, but I think we need to be in a position where there's some money, the money's available to do that, and when the need arises, Dave is in a position to purchase those. So far that involves a selectmen's meeting to waive the bidding process and an allocation of funds to perform.
Yeah, I agree with you, but there's an expiry on these test kits too. So what makes sense to motion today for Dave, with the knowledge that you've shared that you've said Ledgelight is not looking into this, so I'm taking that into account because I didn't know that until today. So I'm assuming that's correct. What is the act that we need to give, knowing that these kits will expire within whatever it is, 3 months, whatever, you'll have to look into that, the longest expiry possible to remediate the initial crisis.
Right. Okay. So I'd like to present.
Can you answer our questions first?
Mary Jo?
How many do we need now within the allowed expiry of the manufacturers?
Depends upon the manufacturer.
To give you some bandwidth to hand out kits to those that really need it, including those who, because of equity reasons, can't get them.
I would say if I was dealing with the equity portion of those who cannot come out, the homebounds, I would say one case at 90 and have those hand delivered through either Meals on Wheels or through the senior center to help offset the minimum counts that I'm getting from the state. I would say purchasing at least 2 additional cases every week based upon the theory that the state of Connecticut is going to provide me with a minimum of 500 test kits for the remainder of January. I would also have in consideration the unknown costs associated with my further conversations with Department of Health, Public Health on what it's going to cost to have PCR testing lab capability down here at an unknown number right now. So to say how many cases, I couldn't put that out there yet because I don't know what I'm getting from the state. But if I based it upon my prior history with the state, I would try to put an additional 200 on top of whatever the state gave me.
And if it helps, Mary Jo, the shelf life consensus seems to be about a year.
It depends upon the manufacturer.
I just checked Binex and 2 others.
Well, I mean, I bought some myself, and they expire in 2022. So
yeah, you bought the Binex.
That's a
Pardon
Dynex
me?
is good for a year.
You bought the Binex, the blue box.
No, I have a variety, and
Okay.
everything expires this year, so I think we need to know that.
Yeah.
What,
I'm receiving stuff from the state of Connecticut that expires, or the shelf life on it goes out in February. Those kits we've already shoved out the door already, but that's what the state has given us. The original donation that we received from Ledgelight through Dominion Power gave us the Binex kits, which again were a use service life of February of 2022. So what I'm getting from the state, I have no control over. And they're going out just as quickly as they're going in. I don't think the shelf life issue right now is a major concern because I don't think they're going to be stockpiled within the municipality for any length of time. It's going to be in, it's going to be out. What the people do with them once they receive them, hopefully they continue to follow the guidelines out there for isolation and separation and mask use, but also if they do come in contact, they use the kit relatively quickly. And what I'm finding out about the interactions that I had personally with the persons coming in and getting the drive-through last week, little interactions with, yes, I have symptoms. Most of the people I talk to is, yeah, I feel like I got symptoms. So they're not taking the box. I don't believe they're taking the box home to put on the shelf and say, okay, I've got it. I think they're going home and either using it themselves or using it with a family member within their cohort.
Well, that's the good news. And like I'm looking at an eye health kit that I personally bought. And I don't think the town has to be really concerned about what people do, how long they put it on their shelf. But we just need to not over purchase something.
And that's why I'm not looking.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to do a giant purchase.
Yeah, good. The one I'm looking at, Dave, just so you know, I have a lot number too if you need it, but it's used by May 27th, 2022. I mean, I think that's reasonable for the town.
Yeah, is that the orange and white box?
Yes.
Yep.
Meanwhile, at our house, we have an eye health kit expiring November 2023.
Yeah. So.
We're coming to your house.
So I'd like to put a motion on the table.
Okay, so what's the motion that you'd like to make?
I'd like to make a motion that the ARPA committee support the mitigation efforts of COVID-19 virus by either earmarking or devoting $50,000 of ARPA funds to support the purchase, distribution, and effective communication to the public for control, the spread of the COVID-19 virus.
Should we say up to 50,000 like Nicole suggested?
I don't know. That number's open for discussion if I got a second.
I think I'm willing to second that, but I don't think it should be up to $50,000. I think $50,000 should be appropriated because again, we could just 6 months from now run right into Stonewall again and have to do this.
First second it.
I second the motion.
Now you can discuss.
And then what I just stated, that I think if we limit it and have another issue, we'll bump up against that number and have to do this dance over again. I think.
Hopefully not.
Well, here we are 2.5 years down the road. And what were we thinking 6 weeks?
Rick, what is 50,000 of the 2 million?
I'm just trying to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and in my opinion, that's a very
right?
broad. That's a very broad ask, $50,000 for what Dave said, and I personally am comfortable with that. But it is going to not be easy to account for that unless we put some things in writing as to for Nicole and for the Treasury Department as to what we spend that on.
That's really for them to track down, though.
Yeah, and I think it's for them, but I also think, Mary Jo, that
Who's them?
how it gets pulled down.
Yeah,
I don't want, what I'm saying is, this falls on Dave, this falls on Dave to say how he spent it. I'm not sure that's fair. And I think we should have some kind of form then put together once this gets approved, to track it so that we have that on file and we're not making it up 6 months from now.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we be specific on how much for kits, how much for distribution, how much for communication. Because I think most of us would think, well, the majority of the money, whatever it is, should go to purchase the kits. But if it turned out that we were paying $20,000 out of the 50 to pay labor costs for distribution, I think we'd be horrified.
Well,
I don't know.
We got people like Meals on Wheels that I assume are free. That's pro bono, I think.
Well, Meals on Wheels doesn't even have any internal plan for any testing kits for their drivers. So
He's talking about volunteers versus paid. I mean, you have to
I think that one of the things that we were talking about is the ability to purchase, and I don't know how the scenario is going to work out, but one of the things we were talking about is purchasing test kits to augment the supply that's given by the state so that we could have our folks come in and distribute them. Instead of distributing 180 test kits, we could distribute 480 test kits. And then once those were gone, we've more effectively used our labor. Now he can go back in and purchase 500 more.
We're only talking test kits. What about the PCR testing model? Because
and then
requires skilled labor that could cost quite a bit of money.
Right, I agree.
Lab personnel.
I agree, Mary. But my point is that was one of the things that was going to sort of make whatever labor expenditure we make more efficient, because we would round out the number that we have. And to Mary's point, if we have somebody come in here with a lab truck and do the PCR test, and we have to sort of either monitor that or they self-monitor, there's a cost associated with that, and that can be a large cost.
We are not in a position to be monitoring this at a micro level.
Right.
We are in a position at the committee to make a recommendation that we think is justified under ARPC as we've been mandated to follow.
Right.
Personally, I think that we are going to just create competition against bidding by going out and buying more test kits. I think we will be successful in probably getting some kits and bidding the price up overall. That's been the experience going through the entire COVID situation with all supplies going back to the beginning of the pandemic. However, we are here to meet the needs of the community. I think one thing that we could do that would be a very strong statement of support, meeting the immediate need, and we would be justified in doing it, is saying we are going to provide a test kit for every resident of the town of Old Lyme.
Out of our own pocket, ARPA money, or combined?
At my position, if I would not personally, I would not be spending the money on the test kits, but because it's gone, done, and I don't know what the bang for the buck is, but I want to protect every life that I possibly can, so I will be on board with everybody else to vote that way. I would say we have good standing if we say we want, as a committee, to buy a test kit for every resident in the town of Old Lyme.
There's one thing that...
support a test kit or the delivery of, whatever that may be, to every person in Old Lyme, up to a limit. Say $100,000, that's about what it would cost, $120,000, whatever that number might be, Dave's estimates.
What do we do with the 20,000 positive testing residents after we provided the kits?
We don't have 20,000 residents.
No, I was just using that.
The 20%.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, that's...
Tell them to isolate.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I don't think we can solve that at this committee or with this funding.
I think there's the community is telling us they want the kits.
Clearly.
Mm-hmm. And we talked in the beginning, we could take the $2 million and divide it by 7,600
Sure.
and get everyone a kit.
Send them all a check for
$212.
$212.
To get to people who might not otherwise benefit from the money.
I think that you can make this recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. There's a Board of Selectmen meeting on the 18th. If you're going to 50,000, it will have to go to the town meeting on the 24th. And in my opinion, things could change between now and then.
Right.
And we're just going to have to adapt to what that is. So I think, Nicole?
Well, when you're done.
No.
It's about the money and the town meeting as I'm thinking about it. One of the options, we don't have to run this money through the general fund budget and be subject to the limitations. I can create a separate account, like a special revenue account, so just the funds go in there and the funds come out. Then you would only need
Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen.
I like that better.
Right.
It makes us more agile.
The need is here.
Right.
We're here, we're hearing it. The committee and everybody, to everybody's benefits, thank you for being here and part of this discussion as a resident, okay? Clearly we feel collectively we want to support now and act now. And I think that we are on firm ground to do so. I think we're not talking as it's presented in a huge impact to the overall amount of funds that we're hoping to apply a process that we have laid out and not even determined as of yet. Right. So I support fully the initiative and the concept. I think we just want to make sure that we're doing enough if we're going to do it, but at the same time have some reference point for how did you come up with that?
Right.
Right.
How did you come up with that?
And how did you spend it?
Well, exactly. And
How do you
so
plan to spend it? But
this proposal, if you assume 8,000 is our end to get a test for everybody, and then I guess that includes for first responders, I think, with 8,000. At $14 a kit, that's $112,000.
Yep.
So if what I'm hearing is there's a movement towards being specific, which I totally applaud, to provide what there is a need for in the community right now, which is the sense that everybody would like to have the ability to test and get those out to those who are able to make the drive-through and those who require the assistance of getting a test. And I love Nicole's idea that we can run it through the special revenue accounting. Then it sounds to me that we're talking just test kits at this point. If that's the case, then Dave needs to remove his motion, and we need to make a different motion to specify the amount of money and for the test kits.
I remove my motion.
And that has to be, and then your seconder has to agree.
I agree.
So now you need a new motion.
Go ahead.
I will make a motion that the committee makes a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to allot up to $115,000 to be used for the purchase of test kits and/or distribution and/or testing of up to 8,000 residents in the town of Old Lyme.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to amend that. I'd like to add the amendment and also including the ability for communication to the residents of the town.
Well, that's under distribution, I would think. But we can add it.
Testing.
Agreed.
In my eyes is
Okay.
testing.
Agreed.
Or PCR labbing.
Agreed.
Distribution, I look at is the labor costs associated with it.
Okay, Dave, we agree.
We agree.
The third
We
one
agree.
is being able to communicate.
I understand, by paper, by Facebook, whatever we do, every mechanism.
And there's other avenues that I can turn to with additional funds.
Okay.
Agreed. I don't know how to handle that from a parliamentarian standpoint.
You just agree to the motion, you vote on the motion as amended.
I agree to the amendment.
Is there any other discussion?
Second. Any discussion? Tom? Bring it to a vote?
All in favor
Aye.
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 Group hug?
No hugging allowed.
No, I mean after that.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? Any abstain? In that case, the motion passes.
Sorry.
Okay.
I got one more.
Another funding, or,
Yep.
oh,
Immediate need to discuss. As you know, the ambulance, EMS responders have been very busy through all of this COVID for the last 2 years. Last year, as the last 2 years have gone, their run reports or their run qualities have gone up exponentially. To date, they've done over 800 in the last final calendar year in 2021. Yeah. Based on that 800 plus call, that's a minimum of 2 to 3 people being exposed or having the potential to be exposed to the COVID-19 patient. While they're doing this, they're doing it with antiquated stretcher systems, which are over 10 to 15 years old, and they came forward to me to ask for funding approval from ARPA funds to purchase, right now, to purchase one new Stryker brand stretcher. It's a powered stretcher. It's wider than their current stretcher. They're experiencing a high increase in volume of transport calls. They're experiencing a larger than normal patient. Their current stretcher is rated at 300 pounds. This stretcher is rated at 450 pounds. It is power activated with power up, power down, power loading, and power unloading off the ambulance. They are looking to get 3 of these down the road to upgrade all their units. They'd like to present a proposal out there to accommodate, to request $55,000 of ARPA funds to assist in the work, transport, and treatment of COVID positive patients, and also being able to protect the patient and in the same time protect the EMTs that are working it due to the power capabilities of the stretcher. So
I'm not quite clear. They're asking for $55,000 is the request?
Right now it's $55,000 to purchase one of these power stretchers.
Is that how much they cost? That's really what they cost?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
More than the ambulance.
I mean, holy cow.
What you're buying, you get the power stretcher and you get the power loader.
I don't doubt you. I'm just surprised.
Oh yeah, they're very expensive.
Well, how many do they use in total in the whole network?
They have 3 ambulances. To do it, to fund it completely, you're looking at $165,000.
But you're just asking for one right now.
Right now, I'm putting a proposal out for one.
Dave, in the beginning,
Mary
when
Jo,
the
are
student had
you
COVID,
also going to be budgeting, asking for the town to put in for the other 2?
mm-hmm.
Probably down the road. We're in budget.
I meant in this upcoming budget cycle.
They are in budget planning now. I do not know what they have.
They have not put in any capital requests.
No capital request as of yet.
They should.
I think they should.
Yeah,
Yes, I do too. That's what it's there for.
I don't disagree. This is Rick speaking. However, I think I'm hearing, Dave, that they have come forward and have expressed this is an immediate need.
This is an immediate need. They have a new ambulance coming that's being built now, and they'd like to be able to upgrade it to this system.
This is not a want. This is a need.
This is a definite need.
When is the new ambulance arriving?
February, I believe.
Dave, in the beginning, the EMTs knew the addresses of the people who had been diagnosed.
We no longer get
We no longer
pre-notification.
get that.
They have to treat every EMS response to a resident as a potential positive case.
How do the 800 calls compare to normal pre-COVID?
I don't have those numbers, but I can get them.
No,
I would
just
say,
like
I think they were
double?
around, last time I knew they were around 600, probably in 2017, 2018.
Do they attribute the increase strictly to COVID? Is there any way to know that?
Yes. They're transporting a lot more COVID positive or COVID-related patients to the hospitals.
If they have to treat every case when they roll as a potential COVID case, whether it is or isn't, you have to be prepped for that when you roll out the door. So that's, I don't know how I feel. I mean, I see it with the new ambulance as a need. I'm not sure that this isn't a capital item. That
for the ignorant amongst us, myself, the ambulance is, how is the ambulance? How does it funded?
The Ambulance Association has its own 501c3.
Yep.
The ambulance itself, all that equipment is owned by the Ambulance Association, not the town.
Okay.
But the town is on, they're on our policy as the
provider.
Under a special town insurance called BFIS.
Okay.
And so we insure them and we pay that. We provide part-time EMTs, they are employees of the town, to do a schedule during the week. Other hours that are not covered, they do through volunteers. The Volunteer Ambulance Association does its own billing to people specifically. And
using the same equipment?
Yes.
Okay.
So they have their own, they have their own tax returns and all of that kind of stuff. So that's currently how it works.
And they function by municipal community donations and by insurance chargings for services.
So it would be
They bill the insurance companies.
It would be unusual for them to put in to the upcoming budget a request for structure.
For capital?
Absolutely. The only thing we've ever had them in the budget for capital would be lockers at the firehouse because, again, our employees are there.
Fixed asset.
We buy gear for our part-time employees, but not the volunteers.
Okay.
So this would be very, very, it's never
So this is
for 12 years them putting in anything other
It
than.
wouldn't be a normal capital
So
expense.
this would be
That's
pretty much a nonprofit request?
Okay.
Would that be correct in saying that? Are they a nonprofit request?
Yes, they are. They're a 501c3.
Okay.
I mean, if you take the dollar amount out of the equation, just for the simplicity of argument's sake, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the dollar amount were $500,
We buy it in the New York Minute.
right? I don't think that there'd be any pushback whatsoever because I think it's clearly identifiable as a need that falls within ARPA. First responders who could be taking any of us out of our house tomorrow on a stretcher.
Right, but the people came and asked for the money for the crib, the water at the beaches, and we said, let's wait, let's do our survey.
I agree. No,
Do you need to like by June?
I think that's where I was going.
Yeah, I think
Finish your thought.
That's where I was going.
I think something like this has to be put in. I think we have to come up with some type of a form, and I think we have to come up with something before we start jumping on. This is
I completely agree. I think
cannot-
it's a viable
right.
option.
It's legit, but and we're not saying no, but it has to go. We have to start going through a process. We can't just
It's
say
a different category than the test kits and funding that we just talked about.
Right.
I agree. That's where I kind of got off the bus. But I think we're correct in we've scheduled a special meeting on the 12th. We have another meeting that follows that on the 19th.
Mm-hmm.
I think in that process,
we still got to get there.
Cheryl, your data, the way your data gets mined and constructed, is as a result of that 12th meeting, can determine what our form looks like. Hopefully, sometime shortly after
our categories.
the meeting on the 19th. Yeah. And once that's defined a little clearer, then redress for that may be the appropriate place. But I think in this forum right now, we are ill-prepared to do that.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Keeping in the back of your mind, I also have two for one for the fire department and one for public works.
Great.
And also Ledgely Health District, so.
Well, they will.
We'll have a form. We'll have a form for that.
If you have a form laid out, we'll be able to present
There will
them on
be.
behalf of public
We
safety.
have a form for internal use that we created. So I sent you all the links, and I can resend it. It's not for applications for the public, it's for us to keep track of the requests that we've been getting, and Tom drafted a letter to respond. So we can have that letter to go to the.
But I think.
But other towns are not just taking requests. The requests have to go back and through an application process.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that.
We're not there yet.
We're not there.
I know.
We've got the 12th and the 19th,
Yeah.
and a document hopefully rises from that will be
Talking
used.
about an application process from the beginning.
Right.
We haven't
I agree.
created it yet.
Now, one last thing, and then I'll shut up. Smiles. We have to revisit our mission statement and our timelines. The reason for that is our mission statement originally states we'll provide information to the Board of Selectmen by the end of June. We have to move that up 2 months because of the schedule, the Board of Selectmen scheduling at the annual meeting. They have to have all the recommendations and make a decision prior to that annual meeting, so it's presented out.
I'm sorry.
I think I know what you're saying, but I'm not sure.
No, the annual meeting for the town is in May.
Right.
When the budgets are
The
approved.
budget.
Part of that.
Yes.
Okay.
But we can call a special town meeting for ARPA.
And I thought we were using a special revenue fund anyway.
Right, it's not,
So this does not, correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole, this would not have to, this 2.1 would not have to go to a public meeting?
no.
If we put in a special revenue fund, then it's in its own special fund designated for specific ARPA purposes.
And it's also already funded.
The only restrictions is that the Board of Selectmen want that restriction on that money.
All right, so we,
Even go to the Board of Finance.
okay, so we don't even have to worry about the timeline for the.
Just the federal reporting requirement.
Yes. Then I retract that. And I'll, so. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was a lot of work. Thanks. Being serious. I'm trying to be cheeky. You collected a lot of data and presented a lot of information.
You did make my hair hurt. You got there.
Okay. So, any other new business?
I think we touched on
I have
my
just
piece.
one piece of information. The Economic Development Commission is trying to put together a forum of different commissions and boards that need to work together on some of the POCD recommendations and a readout of what's going on in an economic study and the regional housing study that RiverCog did, a variety of things. And that is January 22nd. And one thing I'm hoping we can do is have Rick read out kind of top-level survey findings of what's going on with businesses in town from this survey finding.
What time is that? What time? Location? January 22nd. What time on January 22nd is this
If it
forum?
goes ahead with the pandemic, it's from 9 to 12, and it's for a set of board and commission leaders in town.
Okay.
And it's here?
It is likely here.
I texted Stephanie and asked her if they're still doing the phone call check-in system for seniors experiencing isolation, and she said yes.
So that can go on. And the only thing I would like to add is, I know we have to wait for the results of the survey and the meeting and everything else. Have we heard anything back from RiverCog or any of those folks on what it's going to cost us to do compliance?
Yes, I was waiting for Cheryl to finish.
Okay. I thought you were done.
Is that okay?
Is that all right? Okay.
That's me.
That's you.
Spoke to Sam Gold yesterday over at RiverCog, find out what the status was on their pursuit of providing assistance to municipalities through their RFP that they went out looking for specialists. They've had a very successful return to their RFP. They're going to be closing that out at the end of this week, and then they're going to put together a source committee to review qualification. And they're still on track for having somebody in tune, ready to go around early February.
But we don't know order of magnitude yet.
What's that?
We don't know how big the nut's going to be if somebody else.
We know because,
Okay.
as Sam stated when he was first here, he's looking for the professionals to be able to provide these services, which he identified.
Right.
And took our concerns into it also for the management of the administration end of the package of the submittal. They do have a large quantity or large gathering of candidates. They're planning on sorting through those after.
The ETA for that is?
And he should have an answer for municipalities, he assumes around the 7th of February.
Okay.
Early February.
Because that's going to be another
That's a key.
chunk you have to figure out along with it. I'm good.
So should we schedule him for the 9th of February for our meeting and give us a proposal?
Yes. Great idea.
Let me reach out to him. I'd pencil it in for now. I'll reach out to him and see if he'll have something for the 9th.
Good.
Thank you, Dennis.
So we'll move on to public comment. Anyone public comment today?
Yes,
Can you just state your name for purposes?
Yes, Lenny Gordo. The recent spike in cases, I think it is appropriate to consider my request for funding, and once you see the results from the survey and businesses, the food and beverage industry is kind of one of the first business sectors that reduce revenue, trouble with staffing. There's, a restaurant association just did another conference call on, mitigation, different, potential and winter time is traditionally rough. A much worse winter, kind of spring, not looking at spring. I think, a program like spring and not knowing what it's going to look like. Any type of, different, restrictions or closing days and then I just again, with the survey ending, maybe we could put a couple more things on the town website or Facebook, or people will find maybe the content out there saying, hey, it's closing. You can get maybe some more feedback from the next couple of days, kind of round out that survey. Because I know once you get into that data, you're going to see businesses, requesting or suggesting, some type of support, and it might earlier recommendation or emergency to and
do we have some kind of plan to do like a 2 days left or some kind of last push for the survey to remind people that it's closing on Friday?
No, I don't.
I mean, could we? Could we put something on the town Facebook page and share it?
I can have Michelle share it again on Facebook. She doesn't have it on homepage of the town website.
Right,
And all went,
right, but just to do like a last push, because I think some people,
Countdown to the survey end or something.
Yeah, holidays
Even a
are
little
over.
clock. or-
last chance to let your voice be heard.
Yeah, or something like that, just something visible on there, that's all. I think that was a good idea. Thank
And
you.
did we get it to go through the schools? I don't remember ever seeing it through like the blogs and the newsletters that come through the schools. I know, for Cheryl.
Well, it wouldn't go out till Friday and then it would be over.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a move.
Yeah.
I think our response rate speaks for itself.
yeah.
Ultimately, I think the response rate speaks for itself. I think that it's exceeded expectation already, and if we can push it across the finish line a little bit with a little notification, then we can do that.
And I think that every household, a postcard,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's
I
out
don't think we
there.
could have done better than that.
I think you did good.
I think she did great, Ms. Mary Jo, and the whole committee. I just can't thank you enough. My question is, did anyone not get the postcard besides my mailbox?
So I don't think I got one either, Mary Jo, this is Mary.
And I don't think I got one on Witchwood either.
It came the day before Christmas. It came like the 23rd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did get it.
I got mine the first day we had to.
I never got mine, but I'm in line.
You're in line.
Now, we do seem to have, this is just an ongoing conundrum, if you will, that there are some areas of town that aren't getting postcards.
There might be, Mary Jo, there might be 11 of them at the end of the street.
We paid for it within 2 weeks, so it has to be.
My mail truck arrives in my neighborhood after it does Mary Jo's neighborhood, so I don't think.
Yeah, but there's different routes, they break it into different routes, so you must have the same area.
Yeah. All right.
I think I'm just going to call the postmaster in town and just ask him if he's got them hanging around to get them out.
Geez,
Okay.
I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, that would be awful.
Okay.
Motion to
Thanks.
adjourn, I think.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn from, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? We're done. Thank you. Thank you for putting up with me on the phone as I was picking up my sister-in-law up at Bradley and driving home. I'm sure you heard my navigation.